Welcome, everyone, to the Let Purple Rain podcast. This is Fantasy Rain Rundown, your weekly off-season podcast show here on the Let Purple Rain podcast. My name is Joe Arpasi, otherwise known as Purple Rain. I started my CFF work in 2008, and after stepping away for 8 years, I returned in 2024 as Purple Rain. You can find all of my content at letpurplerain.com. You can also follow the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. You can really help the new Spotify channel grow by leaving a 5-star review and following it. And you can also follow me on X at UW underscore purple underscore rain. That is REIGN. And we're going to start today's show with a short little recap of last week's content here from the 4th of July week. Excuse me. The topic of the day today is going to be Tadpole Bowl observations, and then it's going to be Mailbag Time, where it's my weekly section where I answer your guys' questions. It'll be a little different this week, but that gives us a quick rundown of what we'll be talking about today. Now that we got that out of the way, let's dive into some college fantasy football. For our week in review, it really was a short week in terms of content. The original plan, I was going to have all Diary of a Draft Man mock draft episodes for you guys. I hosted a Tadpole Bowl mock draft number 1. I was originally going to also include the Chasing the Natties weekly mock draft that happened the last Sunday of June. Unfortunately, that weekend, Fantrax started having a bunch of duplicate issues. Those problems actually started while we were going through the Tadpole Bowl mock draft. So if you're a premium subscriber, you get to see me in the premium section trying to deal with this problem as it's happening live, as it first started on Fantrax. Luckily, the duplicate issues and some of the things that were happening there really didn't pop up till the end of the draft. But Chasing the Natty, they had to go away from their normal format. We were doing a lot of it through a spreadsheet, and I just couldn't provide you guys a Diary of a Draft Man episode off of that. So unfortunately, I had to do just one. But that Diary of a Draft Man series, it is the video podcast where I walk you through my thought process live while I'm drafting a team. And that podcast episode is exclusive to YouTube and over at letpurplerain.com. The format doesn't fit well for any of you audio listeners over on Spotify. But going into that Tadpole Bowl mock draft number 1 that I hosted, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about it here since today's Tadpole Bowl, since today's topic is the Tadpole Bowl. I feel like some of the things will carry over a little bit. But on the free portion of the podcast, I provided my first 6 draft picks. Normally I do 5, but I was drafting, I believe, in the number 11 spot. So that 6th round came up really quick, and I just kind of threw out an extra draft pick to be included in the free preview show. During those rounds, I selected 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, and 3 wide receivers. And those first 6 draft picks, going in order of how I drafted them, I drafted running back Anthony Hankerson from Oregon State, wide receiver Cam Coleman from Auburn, quarterback Haynes King from Georgia Tech, wide receiver Caden Lee from Ole Miss, wide receiver Dane Key from Nebraska, and running back James Peoples from Ohio State. I'm now going to transition over to our main topic since it does have carryover from that mock draft, and that is Tadpole Bowl observations. One thing you'll notice from that group of players that I drafted was that half of my first 6 picks were wide receivers. In the draft strategy analysis article that I put out, I evaluated the amount of players in the first 3 tiers of my player rankings at different positions. And one of the things that I noticed looking at that information was that there were 20 quarterbacks, 22 running backs, but only 10 wide receivers total in those first 3 tiers. So in that draft strategy analysis I put together, I mentioned I want to get 2 top wide receivers that I can anchor my roster on early. I grabbed Dane Key as my 3rd wide receiver, mostly as a value pick for that mock draft, just because, in my opinion, he should have already been gone. So I kind of felt like I just needed to take him there. I very well could have gone running back in the 5th and 6th, and or I could have even pushed the quarterback back to the 5th or 6th round and grabbed a running back in the 3rd. This kind of gives you guys a little more insight on my thought process when I was going through those first 6 rounds, and why I'm also focusing on wide receiver more than some other people out there in the CFF community for the start of drafts. I want to change gears to how the Tadpole Bowl will play out a little bit as I'm kind of talking about these observations. And if you're brand new to this, also kind of giving you guys some basic ground level information, making sure everybody's caught up here. I don't want to forget any of you guys that are brand new to college fantasy football. Just because we've been in the space for a long time, I want to make sure that you guys are able to get caught up with everything that we're looking at, so you guys can be successful in your leagues. The team that you build in the Tadpole Bowl, um, it'll be one of its own. It's going to be in a 12-team division where you are going to have head-to-head matchups with other people in that division. When it comes to crowning the national champion for all of these divisions, it's going to be the team who scored the most fantasy points on the season. So when it comes to viewing this, there's kind of two things that are at play. This is a best ball style of draft when it comes to crowning a champion nationally of all of these divisions. There's no playoff head to head matchups to deal with. You are going to have a chance to win or if you're going to have a chance to win the entire tournament, you're going to need to land a couple of big difference makers, is one of my big observations, since this is going to be going off of a best ball scoring format. I like to have a balanced approach to drafting my teams, and I like to focus on reliability in terms of fantasy production. This helps a lot with head to head matchups, but it might not get you enough wins to win the whole thing nationally. I'm going to leave it up to just kind of each fantasy owner how you want to approach your team. I think you can go more conservative. I think you can shoot for the moon. I think you can do a balance of both. But this has been one of my big observations. If you want to try and win the whole thing, the national, be the champion of the very first ever Tadpole Bowl, um, I think you're going to have to look big. But when I bring up, like I said, that traditional approach I normally have, you know, I like consistency. I like finding value in guys that might not be that flashy, but they're steady and reliable week to week for their production. And a good example, if you look at that team that I mentioned, I drafted in my mock draft, my quarterback one was Haynes King from Georgia Tech. I drafted him for his reliability, but he won't have as high of a ceiling as other quarterbacks that were taken or that I have ranked in my first three tiers. So, one thing you can try to do is to build what I'm going to call a boom or bust roster. You can take chances on high ceiling players and not worry about volatility in their production. A good player, for an example like this, would be quarterback Damon Williams from Washington. He has a much better chance for a high ceiling compared to Haynes King from Georgia Tech. So you'll need to be comfortable with taking on risk to use this boom or bust approach. I still recommend using my position recommendations for each round that I list in my draft strategy analysis. A lot of where those recommendations come from is where ADP tends to go for different players at each tier of my rankings, and it's kind of a way to help you balance when can I like what you're approaching two rounds. And this is a great example. Let's say you drafted number one and you're approaching round four. You're waiting for all the picks to come back to you, and you're going to do your rounds 4 and 5 back to back. So you're trying to think a little bit ahead of time here. I've listed out those position recommendations for these rounds to help give you some guidance to figure out, hey, I want to get a quarterback, a running back, and a wide receiver, but I need to wait on one. Which one should I wait on? I try and give you some flexibility and some guidance where you could say, okay, you know, Joe's draft strategy analysis says that I'm focusing more on running back and receiver for these next handful of rounds. So maybe I can wait on that quarterback because it seems like these are the positions that he's recommending are going to be going quicker. That the ADP says we need to strike now. But it doesn't mean that you have to take them in specific rounds. Once you get through those first 5 rounds, my recommendations are every 5 round block. So it gives you that flexibility to kind of move and adapt as you go. While working in that framework, you can take shots on these high upside players if you want to do this boom or bust approach. Another observation that I have here is that running backs will go very early in these drafts. I know it's not the most keen observation. We've been seeing it in all drafts, period, this year. But I think especially in the Tadpole Bowl, when you only have FBS schools, excuse me, Power Four schools plus Notre Dame, Washington State, and Oregon State. So that running back well is going to dry up really quick, and people are pouncing on it. I see the top four tiers of running backs being gone by round 10. Then the well really starts to run out. Once you get to this point of the running back pool, there is a strategy that I like. This will be drafting handcuff running back rooms and cornering the market in good CFF offensive systems. I want to give some examples of guys here. Some of these first running backs may go in that early 10 round stage, but if you happen to grab one or if you choose to target one, that gives you that opening to try and handcuff or corner the market on these different running back rooms that I'd recommend looking into. I'm just going to kind of go down the list. I'm going to mention the teams and some of the players that you could focus on here. I've got, for my recommendations, Rutgers with Antoine Raymond and CJ Campbell. Arizona State with Kyson Brown and Kanye Udo. Kansas with Daniel Hishaw and LaShawn Williams. SMU with Tamarian Harden and Dremeco Green. Washington State with Kirby Voorhees and Leo Pulalasi. And I'm going to throw Angel Johnson in there as well. You might not be able to get all three. Angel, I do have pegged as a running back 3 right now, so I'd focus on the top 2 there. Florida State, you have Gavin Sawchuk, Jalen Lucas, and then for the running back 3, I'm also going to throw in Roydell Williams. Oklahoma State, Freddie Brock and Rodney Fields. And Auburn, Damari Alston and Darrell Robinson. One thing that you do need to remember here is that you will be able to do transactions during the season. So you can afford to load up on these handcuff options and drop players that lose out later, or we find out in August in spring camps, one guy is the designated top dog. You can drop these guys and pick up other players later. So that is something that I think you have to really keep in mind, is that the fact you can make transactions also plays into this boom or bust approach that I discussed. If you want to try and win the whole tournament, you can afford to miss on some players in your draft since you can replenish them in your roster through in-season transactions. And when you're talking boom or bust, one position that really fits this well is the tight end position. I mentioned being aggressive and going after one of the top 3 tier wide receivers in my draft strategy analysis. I still like the idea of getting a reliable producer for tight end 1, but then take your chances with the rest of your bench tight ends. Tight end is normally very volatile, and you don't want to risk missing out on your tight end 1. So I do still like the more traditional, safe approach to get a proven producer at tight end 1, but don't overshoot it. Don't take on a bunch of risk with tight end 1, because if you strike out and then you're taking risk on everybody else, you're really going to be scrambling, where I think you're better off just get yourself a steady Eddie that you can count on week in and week out as your tight end 1, and then shoot for the moon after it. That's another reason why I'm recommending doing, I believe it's 3 tight ends that are in my draft strategy analysis. Give yourself a little extra room to take those chances. Another approach I really like for the back half of your drafts is utilizing quarterback wide receiver stacks. This helps maximize the value of these players when you do put them in your starting lineups. These are late round picks. So these are late round quarterbacks and late round receivers that you can get. In the Diary of a Draft Man mock draft episode that I hosted for the Tadpole Bowl, I utilized this twice in that draft. I grabbed from North Carolina State, I grabbed quarterback Cedric Bailey and wide receiver Noah Rogers. And then I went over to Virginia and I grabbed Chandler Morris and Terrell Harris. These are some early observations that I put together for the Tadpole Bowl that I think can really be valuable. And I think one key thing, talking about those running back handcuffs and talking about back half of draft quarterback wide receiver stacks, these are things that you can focus on when you feel like there aren't that many great players left. Focus on trying to squeeze as much fantasy value as you can out of those late drafts. I'm going to switch over here to mailbag time, and this is the portion of the show where I answer your submitted questions. You can submit questions to me on X or through Substack's chat feature. You can ask me questions about CFF, college football, movies, music, life in general, anything you guys want. I'm here for you guys. It was a holiday weekend. Didn't really get anything coming in the mailbag here, so I'm going to kind of go a little off script here and instead just kind of throw out some general things about myself. Maybe things that aren't out there much on the internet, or things that maybe some people might have thought but didn't really want to ask in previous episodes. So one of the things I'll just kind of start off with is just myself, just a little background about myself. I was actually born in South Bend, Indiana, and by the age of 3, my family had moved from Indiana to Michigan to California to the Seattle area. And I grew up from the age of 3 through high school on the east side suburbs of Seattle. I grew up right kind of smack in the middle of Kirkland, Redmond, Washington, and ended up going to Lake Washington High School. I've got any Washington people out there. I was an L-Dub Kang. I played football there, and I stayed in that area until I went to look at playing college football. And I played Division III football. I was mostly like a linebacker type of player in high school, but really wasn't fast enough or big enough for that in college. So I went to the D3 route, and I played strong safety in college. And I went out to the Midwest. Went to Ohio to play Division III football at Wilmington College in Wilmington, Ohio. Proud Quaker here. And a lot of my family, and for some people might seem odd, like going from Seattle to Ohio, but the majority of my family's based out of the Midwest. It was just my immediate family that lived out in Seattle. So being just a couple hours away from driving and seeing other family, it really wasn't that hard of a thing to consider. And my older brother had gone out and played Division III football in Ohio as well, so I was already familiar with the schools and everything. But I did that, and I started my coaching career at my alma mater at Wilmington College. I was coaching defensive backs, and then I bounced around the Midwest. I coached at Morehead State University. I coached running backs, defensive backs. I coached place kickers there. We won 2 divisional championships in the Pioneer Football League while I was there. And then I also shifted to another Pioneer League school. I went and coached at Butler University in Indianapolis, and that was what originally brought me to the Indianapolis area. I coached at Butler for a little bit. I left college coaching, but stayed in the Indianapolis area because I had a bunch of family right in the Indianapolis area and on the north side suburbs where I was living then, and I still live now. And that kind of started to pull me out of coaching because I made the decision to not want to move around like you have to do with college coaching, not try to keep climbing that ladder, and settled down, did high school coaching for a little bit. But once I got out of high school coaching, that was when I jumped into college fantasy football, and that was when I really kind of started my work here, where I was brought in, as a co-owner and operator of collegefootballgeek.com, one of the early pioneer websites. There's a handful of us out there in the early days. I'm glad to see, from that time where we were kind of big in our heyday. One of those sites that's still out there and kicking and doing awesome is the CFF site. Joe DeSalvo is another long-time name that's been out there. I'm glad to see that he's had this running a long time. College Football Geek, we actually, as we were evaluating our business strategy and things, we were trying to find ways to not have to put in as much work because we weren't seeing the type of revenue that we felt like created a balance there. Over the years, we had done things like bring in new writers to help take some of the workload off of myself and my partner that were running the site. And that's where a lot of guys that now that have been in the CFF industry, where a lot of them got their start. John Lobb got a start writing with us at College Football Geek. Mike Bainbridge got to start working with us at College Football Geek. And eventually we ended up selling our ownership rights to a website that did NFL fantasy. But they had an entire format that we could shift College Football Geek into. We could make that product better. And by having a parent company that could take care of a bunch of the back end work, that also helped us free up our time commitments and everything of that nature. But just over time, when DFS college fantasy first started, we really saw that in our ownership group, our new ownership group saw that as really the window for trying to get CFF to grow. And unfortunately, there was the player likeness lawsuits that were happening in the 2010s. And eventually, DFS just went away. All the websites, DraftKings, FanDuel, they just dropped college fantasy football as these lawsuits were starting to go through the legal system. And when that happened, we trudged on for one more year, but our ownership group, they decided to pull the plug. They didn't see the long term investment for keeping College Football Geek around. And that was what started my 8 year hiatus, being away from doing CFF analyst work and just playing, basically in my own leagues and whatnot. Um, that gives a little bit of a background about kind of where I was leading into really just my upbringing, my experiences in football growing up, my early experiences working in the CFF community. Let's kind of throw out some other stuff there for you because, like I said, I want you guys to ask me questions about anything, man. I mean, we do on college fantasy football. We do like a who would you rather? We take two CFF players and present the question and just who would you rather have? Like, I love music, I love movies, and I'm a huge movie buff. Like, you guys can shoot questions like that at me, like who would you rather or what would you rather watch, this movie or that movie? I want this section to be fun, and I'll kind of throw out there, talking about movies too. I'm a huge movie buff. Growing up, we were fortunate enough, like we had a Betamax back in the day. For those of you that are too young to know what a Betamax is, it was the original VCR. And I do remember like we had HBO too. So we would record all these great movies on HBO. So I grew up on movies like Caddyshack and Airplane and Predator and just, like all throughout. And I'll admit a lot of movies I shouldn't have watched at my particular age. Caddyshack is a great one. Blazing Saddles is another great example. I should have never been watching, or Airplane. I should never have been watching those movies when I grew up, but I grew up on that stuff. My brother and I both worked while we were in high school, and we worked at a mom and pop video store in Kirkland, Washington. Any of my Washington people out there, longtime Kirkland people, if you remember Video Library right next to Earl's Barbershop and the 7-Eleven, it was an honor getting to work there. That is a little, for those of you that aren't from the Seattle area, this mom and pop shop, we had a really great community of people that came in. And we were also right down the street from the Seattle Seahawks headquarters. So the Seahawks, when they'd be doing training camp and staying there, they'd always be popping in and getting their videos there. But just growing up around all that, I love movies, man. And I have to say my two favorite movie genres, comedy has always been my favorite. You heard me mentioning mostly comedies about the movies growing up, but horror movies. I'm a huge, huge horror movie fan. So if any of you guys that are regular watchers of the show and you want to ask me questions about horror, want to ask me about some of my favorites, I can go on for ages. I've lost count. I love spreadsheets, which is really good for fantasy football, but I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all my horror movies because I have too many to be able to keep track of them in my head. Probably at least 250, going everything from the 1920s, like the original Dracula and Frankenstein, up to new stuff. But I'm a huge movie buff. And I love Halloween. I love that time of year. So getting to combine horror movies, um, the Halloween season, college football's popping off during that time. That's probably my favorite time of year, just in that October window. Um, Boating season's done for me. I live on a lake here in Indianapolis. I'm going to wrap up the show and probably hit the lake once I'm done recording. But boating season wraps up, and then it becomes college football, Halloween decorations, horror movies, and fireball apple ciders with the fireplace going. So I love the fall for so many reasons, and that's just kind of combining some of it here. So I just wanted to throw out some general things about myself here, and throw out some things that aren't just football. Like I said, ask me anything, guys. I want this to be fun. So now that we're kind of done with our makeshift mailbag that I'm making up for the week here, just going to kind of do some announcements to wrap us up. Next week at letpurplerain.com, I will be returning to my Burning Questions article series that I wrote in February. I'm going to circle back to some of the questions I identified early this year and provide clarity on the questions that we've had more information on. This is going to be a two-part article series for this week, I should say, excuse me. for this week, so keep your eyes out for that. I'm also going to be doing another golden ticket giveaway. It is going to be the final golden ticket giveaway, number 7. So I'm going to be drawing the final batch of lucky winners. I had been doing everything to be on schedule to draft 8 more winners, but we still unfortunately have some teams that were, or some people that were awarded golden tickets that have not claimed them yet and claimed their team in the league. It's been, I think, 3, maybe 4 weeks now I've been mentioning this. I've been sending them direct emails from my website as well as emails from Fantrax. But today, Sunday, is the deadline day. Anyone I see that has not claimed their golden tickets, I am going to be freeing those back up and putting them into the final golden ticket giveaway, number 7 here. So I will likely be handing out a good number of golden tickets for anyone there. If you happen to be someone who did win a golden ticket, you didn't claim it, and I had to pull it back, your name will be put back into the drawing here. So I'm not going to penalize you that you can't win again, because if I had to take the ticket back, it means you don't have one in your possession anymore. You're going to be open for this, but I'm going to stress, I'm going to wait until the very end of the day. First thing when I wake up Monday morning, I'm going to look and see who hasn't claimed their ticket. So if you are watching or listening to the show here on Sunday, please, if you have won a golden ticket, check your email. I have sent an email Saturday, and I've sent an email today. So I am following this up. I'm giving you guys back-to-back emails. Please check your email. Please claim those golden tickets so I don't have to pull them. But I have a feeling some will slip through the cracks, unfortunately. You could get, I'm going back to the drawing here. You could get the opportunity to play against 4 of the top names in CFF. I have the image here on the screen. There's myself, Eric Froton, Jared Palmgren, and John McKechnie. You got people there from LetPurpleRain.com, myself, Fantasy Points, NBC Sports, Campus to Canton, Chasing the Daddy podcast, Roto Wire, with this group of 4 of us. And every person that gets in, you will be placed in one of 4 divisions. So each division has one of the 4 of us that I have on the screen, the names that I rattled off here. So you will get the opportunity to play against at least one of us. There will be playoffs in this as well. So you could have the opportunity to play against more of us, but I'm going to make sure everybody has the opportunity to play against one of us in their division that they're placed in. And whoever wins this entire tournament is going to get an amazing custom wrestling championship belt. I partnered up with armchampionshipbelts.com to be this event sponsor. I worked with them to come up with a custom layout. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, you can see a picture of it there. For any of you that are just listening on Spotify, I'm highly going to recommend come over to letpurplerain.com. I have pictures of it in articles. It is amazing. It's awesome. You will be able to win that for free if you win this. So once again, special thanks to armchampionshipbelts.com. They've been an amazing partner in this whole thing. And I'm so excited with the quality of belt that they've been able to donate here for this year's winner. If you are not already a premium subscriber, sign up now so you'll automatically be entered into this last golden ticket giveaway on Wednesday. If your name is drawn, I'm going to send you a league invite email through Fantrax and through my website, as I mentioned before. So please be watching your inboxes here this week after I do that last drawing. And the final set of announcements here, I'm going to continue to bring up really for the rest of the summer here, my 2025 CFF draft guide. This is the next big thing in CFF draft guides. All premium subscribers to letpurplerain.com get this draft guide packet for free. I'm going to say that again. All premium subscribers get this draft guide for free. If you are not a premium subscriber, if you don't wish to become one, but you still want to get a copy of the draft guide, I do have a link where you can purchase that for a one-time fee of $15. I'm going to highly recommend, signing up for the premium subscription, get it for free, and then you get all of the new content that I'm putting moving forward as well, not just to help you for this draft season, but also during the season as well. In this draft guide, I've got 76 pages of CFF info. I have player rankings for all FBS. For Power 4, I include half PPR, Underdog Fantasy, and Scott Fish Tadpole Bowl rankings, and I also have Group of 5 rankings in there. I provide Fantrax upload files where you can take my player rankings and automatically update them into your Fantrax leagues. I have Fantrax player ranking upload files for every list of player rankings except for Underdog Fantasy, because those are not held on Fantrax. I also have 974 player projections available. The player projections, I have, I break things out where you can view everybody all together so you can see all the positions within every team. I also have tabs which break it down by position. So if you want to see just each individual player, and I also have in there where I have every player ranked in my full FBS half PPR player rankings. So if you were to sort out my projections by fantasy points, you can look and you will see my player rankings number for where that player is in their position group, because they don't go hand in hand. I do not just do this year. I'm not just doing the projections and that's the order everyone's in. Projections play a hand in my rankings, but the rankings are able to take other items into account where someone might be a little more risky, so they're moved down. You're going to be able to see where I have them in my player rankings in this projection file as well. And the other great thing that I have in my player ranking cheat sheets in the draft guide, I've included in the projection file, is that you're going to be able to look at the profile that I've set for each player, which kind of has to do with their previous fantasy production. I also have my analysis on their position battle status. So there might be someone that has a really high projection, but they're in a contested position battle. You can see that in this projection spreadsheet instead of having it omitted from there. So I wanted to make sure that you had all that important information. For those of you guys that like to work off of spreadsheets, that like to prefer to do your drafting that way, I've given you this great resource as well. Sorry about that. Quick on the finger there. But that's me wrapping up, a part of everything that you're going to get in the CFF draft guide. I'm just going to say this was the Fantasy Rain Rundown here on the Let Purple Rain podcast. Please follow on YouTube and Spotify. And thank you for watching the Let Purple Rain podcast. Your CFF Rain starts here.